Hello, my birdies, and welcome back to Robin's Reading Nest. Today's review is from an author whose debut novel was one of my favorite reads thus far this year. Terah Shelton Harris penned One Summer in Savannah, and I gave her praises in my review. If you haven't seen it, please click here. So when I heard she had a second book being released entitled Long After We Are Gone, I knew I had to drop everything and read it. I was lucky enough to get it on my Hoopla app without a wait. Let's start off with my very own summary of the book. When the patriarch, King Solomon, dies, his dying words are, "Don't let the white man take the house." The house is a plantation style home in the middle of 200 acres of land, affectionately called the kingdom. The land has been in the family for a century, and men have been trying through any means necessary to acquire it. Now, in present day, it is on the radar of a greedy development company who wants to turn it into a resort due to its waterfront. After burying King, the Solomon children get notice that 5 acres of the kingdom has been sold, and that includes the familial home. Now, the Solomon children must come together to save the kingdom, all while battling their personal demons. After getting their assigned roles, each child has to get answers on how the land was able to be sold without them knowing, who sold the land without their permission, and why it was sold. Junior, Mance, Cece, and Toki all come to the realization that the demons that they are individually facing aren't necessarily demons at all, but reflections of their personal choices and traumas. So let's look at the characters of Long After We Are Gone. Our first is the patriarch, King Solomon. He has been responsible for the kingdom ever since his father was killed for not selling it, and he wants to make sure that it continues to remain in the family. Junior, the oldest of the Solomon children, is married, has 2 kids, but he's living a double life. He always feels like he is two people getting pulled into two different directions, and it's getting harder and harder to differentiate between the two. Matt Solomon is the second Solomon son. He could have been nicknamed the Enforcer. He acts more like the oldest son than Junior. He has been helping King keep the kingdom from going under. No matter how hard he tries to stay on the right side of the law, though, he always ends up locked up. Cece Solomon is the oldest daughter of King. She has been running from her former life only to have made a mess of her current life. She believes that by leaving her hometown of Diggs, North Carolina, she is breaking the cycle of being in a quote unquote struggle relationship with a bunch of kids. That reality is her worst fear. Angeline Toki Solomon is the youngest daughter and the youngest child. She is dealing with an eating disorder. She seems to use food to fill an emptiness that she has within herself. She feels like she's the black sheep of the family because she doesn't look like the rest of the family. Ellis is an honorary Solomon. He endured an abusive childhood that was ultimately turned around when he showed up to the Solomon home with a dislocated shoulder. King confronted Ellis's father, and the beating stopped immediately. Even though most would consider him a Solomon sibling, Ellis has been in love with Cece ever since they were children, and she still has a place in his heart. For her research, Tara discovered that after the Reconstruction period, a lot of Black Americans bought land, and at the same time, laws were being created to take the land from them. Due to that, a lot of heir property did not have wills or deeds because Black Americans did not trust the court systems. which during that time is understandable. It's sad that a family is under the impression that just because the land belongs to them, that no one can take it. While doing research on heir property, I found an interview that Terah did with the Gwinnett Public Library entitled Arthur Talk. This video, hosted by Janelle M. Williams, is where Terah discussed other ways that heirs can lose land, including eminent domain, tax sales, property value increases, and partial sales. Eminent domain is where the government can take property for public use and compensation for what the government deems fair. In this case, the owners could get pennies on the dollar. Tax sales happen when the heirs do not pay the taxes and the government sells the property not for its full value, but for the amount of the taxes. Property value increases could also fall under tax sales. If a developer is buying all of the land around heir property, this increases the heir's tax obligations, and the heirs may not be able to afford this. Tyler Perry spoke about this when building his latest movie studio. To counter the problem, Tyler paid the back and current property taxes for 100 low-income senior citizens that live near the studio. His payments also included a freeze on the tax amounts for 2 decades. Partial sales is what was described in Long After We Are Gone. This is when someone sells a part of the heir property. Also in that video, Terry discusses the inspiration for the book. Two brothers by the name of Melvin Davis and LaCurtis Reels. They were jailed for 8 years for not leaving the land that was rightfully theirs, but not legally. Their great-grandfather's dying wish was also, whatever you do, don't let the white man have the land. I also found a Q&A Terah did entitled #Arthur Elevator Series with Judith D. Collins. And when asked if she had any actors that she would like to play her characters in a TV or movie adaptation of Long After We Are Gone, she responded that for Junior, she would like to have Sterling K. Brown. For the role of Mance, she would like Aldous Hodge, DeWanda Wise for Cece, Amber Riley for Toki, and Damson Idris for Ellis. And I would have to agree. I could easily see these stars playing those characters. In the Author Talk video, she also explains how she writes characters for her book. She says they speak to her and she grabs her notebook and pen and writes down what they say. She also stated that Ellis was not supposed to have a big role in the story, but he continued to talk to her and she decided to give him more pages. In my opinion, though, Long After We Are Gone was not as breathtaking as One Summer in Savannah, I still loved it, and the discussion of heir property. Terah has a third book on the way entitled Flower Farmer. According to her Instagram, it's about a woman who is running from the law and a troubled past, and she finds herself working on a flower farm in Alabama. The book is scheduled for release in 2025. In the Author Talk video with Gwinnett County, Terah reveals that the inspiration for The Flower Farmer came from an article that she read about Bobby Love. Bobby Love walked out of prison, and for 35 years he lived life under the radar as a hard-working, dedicated husband and father. That is until one day the police knocked on the door and asked for him by his former name. Bobby has written a book entitled The Redemption of Bobby Love. I plan to add it to my list. Have you read Long After We Are Gone? What are your thoughts on heir property? Let me know in the comments. I thank you guys for being with me again today. And I would appreciate it if you would subscribe and like my YouTube channel, Robin's Reading Nest, and also follow me on TikTok and Instagram, also Robin's Reading Nest. So, until our next book review, thank you for visiting Robin's Reading Nest, where birds of a feather read together.